Welcome to the Greenlee Library. My name is Danielle Applebaum, and I am the Scholarly Communication Librarian at the Thomas D. Greenlee Library. Welcome Nutrition 325. In today's library session, we have a lot to cover. So by the end of today's session, you'll be able to recognize and understand the production process of scholarly peer-reviewed journals. You'll be able to identify appropriate databases for nutrition-related topics. You'll be able to construct and execute searches for scholarly peer-reviewed articles in library databases. You'll be able to construct in-text and end-of-text citation in APA style. And you'll be able to access assistance from librarians. Let's get started. A great research project begins with accessing the library homepage. You can access the library homepage by navigating directly to farmingdale.edu/library or by logging into your MyFSC account and accessing the library link on your dashboard. Once on the library homepage, click on Research Guides. From here, navigate to the guide that covers the disciplinary focus of your course. Here, you'll find a list of recommended resources based on the topic of the guide. Everything covered in this video will be accessible from this guide, so we'll come back to this guide in just a moment. So, before we begin, what is a peer-reviewed journal article? This quick video will show you what makes a peer-reviewed article different from other resources.
Scholarly articles, academic articles, peer-reviewed articles. You may have heard these terms used by your professor, but what do they mean? Essentially, these are all different ways of describing the same thing, research articles that have been published in scholarly journals. But what is a research article, and how does it get published in a scholarly journal? First of all, the article reports a scholar's research practice and findings, and it's written with an audience of other researchers in mind. Finally, in order to be published and accepted by the scholarly community, the article must pass several quality tests. The most important of these tests is called peer review. We can get a better understanding of the role of peer review if we look at the academic publishing process as a whole. Let's imagine a researcher who wants to share a discovery with the academic community. To do this, he writes a draft article describing his research and findings and submits it for publication in a scholarly journal. Here's where the article has to pass its first test. The journal's editor reads over the article to decide whether it's a good fit for her journal. If it is, she sends copies of the article to a group of experts to evaluate the article's quality in a process called peer review. This is the article's second and most important test. These experts are the author's peers, since they're working in the same research area. And since they're making a judgment about the article, they're sometimes called referees. So peer-reviewed articles are sometimes called refereed articles. Each reviewer evaluates the article by asking questions to judge the quality and significance of the research. Questions like, what is this research about? Is it interesting? Is it important? Is the methodology sound? Are the conclusions logical? And are the findings original? Based on the answers to these questions, the reviewers decide whether the article is worthy of publication in the journal. They then make a recommendation to the editor, either approve the article for publication or reject it. Even if they recommend publishing the article, they usually expect the author to make revisions. The editor, however, makes the final determination whether the article should be approved, rejected, or revised. Rejection is common, though. The most prestigious journals are very selective about the articles they publish, so they tend to have high rejection rates. Some journals reject more than 90% of the submissions they receive. From the time the researcher first submits his draft article to the time it is finally published, several months or years may have elapsed. Once the journal is published, it is made available to subscribers, which are usually university libraries, because individual subscriptions are very expensive, often hundreds or thousands of dollars a year. By the way, like all established systems, the peer review system has its critics, and scholars continue to think about how the peer review process might be improved. The library has tools to help you find peer-reviewed research. If you want to know more about the peer review process or need help finding peer-reviewed articles, ask a librarian for help.
We'll begin our search at the Nutrition Guide. First, we'll click Academic Search Complete, which is just one of many EBSCO databases to which the library has access. So, we're going to start by adding in databases helpful for nutrition research by clicking the term Searching Academic Search Complete right above the search field. We'll check off CINAHL, both health source databases, and Medline. These are all health-related databases that might be helpful for our topics in nutrition. Now we can begin our keyword search. Let's say we're researching the relationship between nutrition and hypertension, specifically in adolescents. The important thing to remember is that the database doesn't operate like Google. We can't type in our topic as a sentence or a question. Instead, we will reduce our topic to its most important concepts, and those will become our keywords. In the first field, we'll type in nutrition. In the second field, we'll type in adolescence. And in the third field, we'll type in hypertension. Below our search field, we have the option to limit our search even further, so we'll click peer-reviewed to limit to materials published in peer-reviewed journals. We also have the option to limit by publication date. I am going to limit to materials published within the last 5 years, but you should check with your professor to determine if your selected articles must fall within a specific publication timeline to satisfy the requirements of the assignment. Once we select our limitation for date, we'll click Search. You can begin to browse or refine your search further by clicking the following. Under the source type filter, you'll want to ensure that your results are displaying academic articles only. Under all filters, a helpful limiter you might consult is the subject limiter. It's important to note that we just did a keyword search. This means that the results in our list are appearing because the words for which we searched appeared somewhere in our list results. However, it doesn't mean that all of these results are actually about these topics. Every article in the database is tagged with a subject term so that you know the general topics covered in the article. Using the subject delimiter allows you to limit to only those articles tagged with those terms you select, meaning that the next iteration of your result list will contain materials about those topics. If you're new to subject searching, I recommend starting with the subject thesaurus, but you can also use the mesh term limiters. I also recommend sorting the subject list alphabetically before taking some time to review and select terms relevant to your search. Once you're happy with your search, you will click the title to access the record for the item. If the item is a full-text article, meaning that it's part of our subscription package, you'll be able to view it online clicking one of the available formats under Access Options. You will also be able to download it. If the article is not available, it may say Other under Access Options. You can follow this route to request the item via our interlibrary loan program. It's a great way to get materials we don't currently have access to, and there is no additional charge to members of the FSC community for using this service. Before you begin looking at your list, you may also want to take a look at the subject terms used in the articles you've already selected. You can use these terms to construct new and more precise searches. To cite the article, click the quotation mark at the top of the page. Use the drop-down menu to select your preferred style and copy and paste into your project. Please remember that citation generators, though helpful, are not 100% correct. So we recommend referring to our citation resources and guides to check and polish up all of your citations before handing in your project. ProQuest databases are also another great option for your research. Scroll to the lower portion of the nutrition guide to access the database. This will take you to the advanced search page where you can apply the same techniques we utilized in the EBSCO database. Let's say we're researching the role of nutrition in the motor skill development of preschool-age children. In the first field, we'll enter nutrition. In the second field, we'll enter toddler or preschool. When there are different ways of describing similar concepts or populations, putting "or" between the terms tells the database that you'll accept results with either of those terms. Now we'll add a row, and in the third field, we'll type in motor skills. Before we hit search, we'll limit to peer-reviewed materials. Once we conduct our search, we can limit to scholarly journals under source type. We'll also limit to publications published in the last 5 years under the publication date limiter. Just like in the EBSCO databases, we also have the subject limiter if we want to narrow our search further. When we're ready to view an article, we'll click the title. This will bring us to a page where we will have access to the item if it's part of our subscription packages. From here, you can download the article and generate a citation. To generate a citation, you'll click Cite. Then select your preferred style from the drop-down menu, and your citation will be generated. Be sure to check the generated citation against a style guide before submitting your project. Finally, we'll explore PubMed, a database provided by the National Library of Medicine. I'll include a link in the description below since this resource isn't currently included on our nutrition resource guide. Once we arrive on the PubMed homepage, we'll click Advanced. As we did with the EBSCO databases and ProQuest Research Library, we'll enter our keywords. Let's say we're interested in the role of nutrition in geriatric hypertension. First, we'll type in nutrition and click And. Then, we'll type in geriatric and click And. Finally, we'll type in hypertension and click And. Then, we'll click Search. First, we'll limit by publication date. I'm going to limit to resources published within the last 5 years. I'm not going to limit by text availability because if something isn't available via PubMed, you can put in a request with interlibrary loan. If you have a preferred type of study, you can specify that under Article Type. Finally, we have additional filters. I am going to limit by the language in which I wish to read the articles. I am going to specify that I want studies on humans and not animals. I am going to skip the sex limiter as it isn't relevant to my question. And I am going to click See All Age Filters and choose both 65 plus and 80 plus. When I am ready to view an article, I will click the title, and then I will look in the upper right-hand corner to see my options. You may have several options to choose from, so look first for terms like open access or read for free. These will be the easiest to access. If you have any trouble accessing a resource from PubMed, reach out to a librarian immediately at reference@farmingdale.edu. I'll add our contact information below. We'll walk you through getting what you need if we don't already have it in our collection. You also have a citation button. Click Cite to access the citation generator, and then select your preferred style from the drop-down menu. This will generate a citation in your preferred style. Again, be sure to check it against a style guide to make sure your citation is complete and accurate. Now that we've discussed finding sources, we need to discuss citing sources. Failure to cite often results in plagiarism, which is presenting another's words, ideas, or research as your own. Fortunately, the easiest way to avoid plagiarism is to properly quote, paraphrase, and cite your sources. Direct excerpts should be surrounded by quotation marks and followed by an in-text citation. Make it clear to the reader how the quote connects to your work. Putting another author's words, research, or ideas into your own words is paraphrasing. Like a quote, this requires an in-text citation. In-text citations follow the author, year format. Parenthetical citations can be used if you're not referencing the author or authors as part of a sentence. If you're referring to the author or authors as part of the sentence, you'll use the same format, except only the year will be contained within parentheses. Now, the database citation generators I've shown you are really helpful, but there's often 1 or 2 mistakes, so you will briefly go over the format for citing books and journal articles in your reference list. A journal article citation will follow this format: author's last name, first initial period, the year of publication in parentheses followed by a period, the title of the article followed by a period, the title of the journal, which is italicized, followed by a comma, followed by the volume in which the article was published, which is also italicized, followed by the issue, in parentheses, followed by a comma, followed by the page numbers on which the article appeared. If you have a DOI, also known as a Digital Object Identifier, you can include that after the page range. If not, just leave it out. A book citation will follow this format: author's last name, comma, first initial, period, the year in which the book was published, in parentheses, followed by a period, the title of the book, followed by a period, and the publisher, followed by a period. If your book has a DOI, you can include that right after the name of the publisher.